Hey, thanks for joining me to another Rodney O Podcast. Today you won't be regret tuning in. You won't want to miss this one. This one's all about nothing can stop you. It's a song. Nothing can stop you. So go ahead and tune in, grab a friend, listen. Welcome to the Rodney O Podcast. All right, so, in my junior year in high school, an important milestone happened to me in my life. I got my license. Technically it was the end of my sophomore year. My birthday is in May, so the last few weeks of my sophomore year, I was driving. But my junior year was really the year that I spread my wings, had that independence, and was driving. It provided freedom for me. But with freedom comes what? Responsibility, right? And to be honest, I abused both of those things. And let me go back then, people know me now, right? I wake up at 5:30 in the morning a lot of times. I can wake up early, go get my exercise in, get my devotion in, and get started on the day really, really early with a good head start. Back then in high school, the way I like to sleep in. I like to get my rest, right? I was still working a lot. I was doing a lot of things, but I did like to sleep in. And so as a result of sleeping in, you know what happens? You miss a lot of your morning class. That first period class was very easy to miss. But eventually, you know what happened? It caught up to me. I was called out. The first period class was my band class. And so my band instructor one day just finally called me in the office. And on his desk, he had my attendance record on the desk, right? And he's looking through it and he says, "This is crazy. Like, something's going on. What is it? Look at your attendance record. You're missing 2 to 3 days a week." And I had no idea it was that much. There's only 5 days in a week for school week, right? And I was missing 2 to 3 days on average. That's how much I was sleeping in. And, my parents were both going to work, so they would leave and they would just assume I was, going to school, which I was. I was just missing first period. And so we talked for a little bit and he said, "Rodney, I kind of take this personally. Like, you're missing my class. Like, everybody else's class you're going to, but just mine." And so I didn't have an excuse. I was called out. And eventually the school had called a meeting to the principal. And what I, had to do was serve some detention times. And they had Saturday school and all kinds of things. And because of that, they notified my parents. And I did what anybody would do. Not anybody, but what I did back then was I lied to them, right? And I said, "You know what? Something's wrong. Like, they're making a mistake. I didn't miss these classes, right? Not sure why I did do that and why, they were going to find out." So, to their credit, they defended me. They said, "Are you sure? Are you accurate? Because if we're sure, we're going to defend you and make sure that you don't get in trouble for this." And they had my back, and they were there making sure that nobody would take advantage of me or say I did something that I didn't do. But they defended me even though I didn't deserve them to defend me. But they did anyway. And so that's kind of a story that I kind of related to today's topic as we continue on this series that I'm doing on my podcast. And so I want to talk to you today about the one who will defend you no matter what. Buckle up. Welcome to the Rodney O Podcast. So today on the Rodney O Podcast, we are going to continue the series that I titled Survival Guide to 2020, John's Instruction Manual. And today topic I titled Nothing Can Stop You. And so each week I'll be teaching and going through the Gospel of John, not to be confused with the books of John 1, 2, and 3, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John. But today we're going to read through the Gospel of John chapter 2, and we're on verses 13 through 25. And so my hope in this series is that those who are unfamiliar with the Bible can get a good intro to it. And I think John's a good start for a lot of people who are just getting into the Bible. And those who are more proficient, they can kind of get a refresher, and hopefully they'll hear something and pass along to people who may need to hear this. And the whole reason why I wanted to do this series, I did a lot of, podcasts, and this is one of the few ones that I just kind of am going through the Bible with this, because I think it's important in 2020 because we have a crisis, right? We have COVID. We have racial tension that keeps happening over and over again. We keep hearing things that's keeping this to the forefront of our minds. We have political fighting with the election coming up. Right here in Cali, there's fires where I live. There's hurricanes in other areas. And so there's a lot of things going on. And so with all of this that's going on, I want to give the bright side of it, right? The good news of it. And there is good news. We just have to do our part. And so as we examine this thing we call life, we will at some point be disappointed. Life will disappoint us at some point. And if it hasn't, keep on living, right? You'll face disappointments. And we'll need to build our faith and perseverance and keep going in spite of all that. Because we'll have roadblocks. And these roadblocks will turn into excuses that will stop us and that will allow to stop us, right? Because we have these excuses that happens to us, So this year, is this a perfect example of all these roadblocks? Quarantine's a big one, right? Stay inside. Don't go outside unless necessary. Only essential business people working. And many of us can't do the same things we used to do. And the luxuries that we used to have, for me, was the gym. It got shut down twice on me, right? And I'm currently going right now. So Gavin Newsom, if you're listening, please leave us alone, right? Outdoor workouts. But many businesses can't operate the same way they used to. They have to adjust. Restaurants, you can eat outside. Gyms, work out outside, right? And I know restaurants they kind of went back and they're easing up the restrictions again. But many people can't work the way that they used to. So that affects you. And that kind of makes a roadblock into having this good news and to doing what you want to do, right? This whole idea that nothing can stop you. It seems like racial tension, I mentioned that earlier, that seems like that it's at its breaking point. We have athletes now that are speaking out. And the country seems to be so divided on these issues. You add to that the fires that are in my area, hurricanes. And there's a mess going on in 2020, right? And so the question that we always kind of face is, how do we have hope when your home and possessions are gone, right? When you think about the fires. How do you find hope when you can't work and provide for your family? I'm talking about the quarantine, jobs being lost, businesses not having the same income as they used to. How do you have hope when you have to choose between work or staying with the kids because the schools are now closed and they're doing homeschooling, basically, right? I mean, they're on there for Zoom, on the computer, over the internet, but they're home all day. And then the last one, how do you say, God, I want to have hope and I want to have access to you when He seems so far? I said in the last episode, and go ahead and go back and listen to that if you will, but I said in the last episode, and I want to say it again, we already put our trust and hope into darkness a lot of times, right? Into the falsehood of all other things that are happening, into the fake news, into the fear-mongering news, into the bad news, right? And so our trust and hope is in that, in the darkness. And we ignore the signs or discredit the stories that we hear of the real life things that are happening and going on right now. Because we're too angry to allow it to happen. We're angry at God, right? We refuse to let the light use us, the Creator use us, which is a must. We have to do this. So the barriers that we have, they're made of our own doing because we have a clear path to the Creator, and He will do anything to clear that path to Him. He'll go through extreme measures to make sure that you have access to Him, and He'll knock anything that's in the way of you accessing Him. Because here is the thing. The Creator will stop anyone or anything that's preventing you from accessing Him. So if we ask the question, what stops us from growing our faith, right? The whole thing is this, look, we have unlimited access to God. And this is why we can grow our faith. God will not allow anything, nothing, no person, no thing to stand in your way from accessing Him. You are His. We are His children. Just like a parent protects his child and will not allow anything to stop the child from accessing the parent. The child is yours, right? And so when we look at this, there's a proper way to be angry. There's a quote unquote righteous anger, an anger that you will not do anything wrong. You will not sin. And that is righteous anger. And there is a proper way to be jealous because, there's always this phrase, jealousy is bad, right? Jealousy is a sin, but God is a jealous God. How does that work, right? Well, if it belongs to you, then it's okay to be jealous. But it's not okay to be jealous if something doesn't belong to you. So if you're jealous because somebody else is claiming your kids and you're angry and you're jealous about that because your kids are going and calling somebody else mom or dad, you have a right to be that. But you can't be jealous because you want somebody else's wife and you're jealous of the husband, right? That's wrong because that wife does not belong to you, our husband, but vice versa. So because we have unlimited, unblocked access to the Creator, when we are operating in our God-given gift, we have unlimited power and ability to do it. Otherwise, nothing can stop us. Look where I'm getting this from, okay? In today's passage, and again, we're reading out of John chapter 2, verses 13 through 25, says this. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." Let me stop here. Here's a picture. Jesus is going basically into the church. And he's walking in and he's seeing them selling these animals. You may say, that's kind of weird. Why are they selling animals in church? Well, back then, before Jesus was crucified as the ultimate sacrifice, you were required to bring your sacrifice to the synagogue, to the church, so that it can be sacrificed for your sins. And so if you were poor and couldn't afford to bring it, you could purchase one at the church. However, these guys were manipulating the prices, and they were huge. They were charging so much that if you were poor, you had no choice but to scrape everything you had and pay it, or you couldn't worship. Think about that. You couldn't go to church. And so that's why Jesus was angry, and he went in and he took whips, and you can imagine him, snapping a whip around and all these animals running around frantically, getting scattered, tables flying. He's flipping over tables and stuff. Jesus didn't sin, but he has this righteous anger in his house, right? Because of what? They're stopping people from worshiping. Look how the people in the church responded, the leaders of the church who were doing this. Verse 18, I'll continue on. The Jews then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do this?" Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." They replied, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to raise it in 3 days?" They're thinking, yeah, right. But the temple he had spoken of was his body, and he was raised from the dead. His disciples recalled what he had said. Then they believed that scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. He knew what was in everybody. He knew everybody inside and out. And so if you can imagine this, one thing that stands out to me is he's sitting here causing all this ruckus in the church. And they could have had him arrested, thrown out, but they didn't touch him. All they did was say, what authority do you have to do this? And he said, basically, "I'm God." And even if they didn't believe him, there's something about his presence and the way he spoke with authority that they didn't even touch him. They just got angry. And they were just saying, this guy, we don't know what to do, right? And so this shows, again, that Jesus was so angry. The Creator was so angry that people were preventing others from worshiping that he would go through all these measures and have this righteous anger to make sure that this isn't going on, to make sure that we can find a way to have access to him and nothing can stop us from doing that. So what does this mean? I mean, when we feel like God isn't there or we can't get to him, it's going to be false. Or maybe that we are the ones that are holding ourselves back because nothing else is. And then on the flip side of this, if we're holding someone back from accessing and worshiping God, we're asking for a world of trouble. Trust me, if you're doing anything to stop somebody from growing their faith, you're asking for a world of trouble. Because if you look at this, if we look at nature, we know that this is true. I mean, in the wild, a mother protects her young at all costs, even to the detriment of their own lives. And we ourselves are built like this. I mean, how much more so would the Creator be like this? Because after all, we're made in his image. So if we're like this, how much more is he like this? And we see that the Creator went so far as to give his own life for us. So when we realize that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, we won't be stopped. Nothing can stop us. When we apply it correctly, right? When we have the faith to do it and the confidence to do it, we can do everything. Now, this doesn't mean that we can go outside of his plan or his nature or say, I'm going to fly or something crazy or say, we can do anything. I'm going to get $1 million because I said I can do it. No, there's actually things you have to do with that because, again, it's your God-given gift. And when you work in your God-given gift with your faith, you can go and do anything. That's why, if I take a break here, I have the Faith Mindset course, and it's been going really well recently because that is the foundation for everything. Faith is the foundation for everything. If you have faith and you grow that, nothing can stop you, nothing can shake you, and you have unlimited potential. The mustard seed has unlimited growth potential. The mountain is fixed, large but fixed. And that's where I want people's mindsets to go, right? Because at some point in your lives, we need our faith to get us through. Sometimes things seem hopeless or impossible. We need to know that the unlimited access makes it so we will never be in a hopeless situation. Never. This is what gets us through life. This is what gets us through to the next step. This is what happens. And so this is not, I'm not teaching like what they call a prosperity gospel. I'm not sure if people know about that, but sometimes you hear people talk and say, hey, if you're not rich, you don't have enough faith, you're not believing enough and blah, blah, blah. You're not doing enough. You're not praying enough. That is not true. And that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not saying, grow your faith and you'll be rich. What I am saying though, is that you can do anything if you're working with your God-given gifts to fulfill God's plan to make the world back to good. And you have the faith to do that. If that includes monetary, then so be it, because you'll be working so hard and be working towards it that God will bless. And that means giving as well. So the more you get, the more you should give. Anyway, that's my little side note about that. So let me leave you with some next steps, right? Make a decision to believe that God has made a clear path to him for you. Make that decision right now. That hey, God has made a clear path for me to him. He cleared that path. There's nothing stopping me except me. And then next step, ignore the negatives that get built up in your mind. That's what stops us from accessing God, because these negatives and saying we can't. When God is saying you can. Come to me. The path is clear. And then third, do everything you can to help others access the Creator by the way of your God-given gift. People ask me why do I do what I do, right? Because I believe in my God-given gift, and God says, do everything you can do to help other people access him. Point other people to him. And that's what I need to do all the way. By use of God-given, look, if your God-given gift is art, then use your art to paint people to Christ. Use your art to inspire people, right? That's what it's all about. Do everything you can to make that happen. Well, please feel free to dialogue with me. You can check out my YouTube channel, Rodney O. You can go ahead and search that. The YouTube channel will show that I am living what I speak. Please be sure to subscribe to that channel. I greatly appreciate it. I keep saying that I'm going to go start again. I will. Trust me, the day is coming when I will have new videos regularly on there. I'm working things out right now. The link is in the podcast description, or you can simply go to YouTube and search Rodney O. You can catch up on all the prior stuff that I've done. Remember this. I want to inspire, encourage, and motivate all of you as we navigate this journey that we call life. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next one.